there's a ton of movies about drug addiction, but I think this one, the better thing was its commentary on, what even is a drug.
I'd say of all the movies we've seen, this one is probably the hardest to watch.
Welcome back to Overtly Critical. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Corwin.
And this week we watched
Requiem for a Dream from 2000, directed by Darren Aronofsky.
4 residents of Brighton Beach, related by familial, romantic, or friendship ties, have their aspirations of getting on television, living up to their parents, and opening a business shattered by their similar yet unique drug addictions. So this was my pick for the first time
in a while.
In like 2 months. It kind of shocked me. It had been on my list of movies for a while. I had Pi by Darren Aronofsky on our list originally. Obviously, I took it out for this one. And, I mean, there's really not much to say other than the movie is just a shocking movie. But, if you doesn't take much reading into it to see what the movie has to say.
I would say a good surface level read of this movie is drugs are bad, but also how do people turn to drugs and how do people spiral into addiction.
I think that probably the best thing to come away from this movie is, even the question, what is a drug? It's not, just because someone has a drug that's, it's heroin, that's a drug. Okay, well, what about diet pills? It's hard to deny how stylistic it is. I think a lot of how it's shot, but specifically its editing. I mean, this film was born in the editing room, basically. It's just one of those movies that if it didn't have the editing it does, it probably wouldn't be what it is.
Yeah, I'm very curious to read the book that this was based off of.
Yeah, it's from the late 70s, I think.
Yeah, and this was written, the screenplay was co-written by Darren Aronofsky and the writer of the book. I wonder how this would work as a book compared to a movie, because this story is made to fit so well to the medium of film. It
starts not as heavy as it becomes at the end. It really is a spiral, as you mentioned. That's the best word to use, I think. It's kind of this like snowball where the last...
It ramps up all the way.
And the last 10 minutes of the movie are just like, that's probably what you'd want to not watch again.
I meant to rewatch this for the podcast to like dive a little deeper into the themes and the story and the visual style. I just couldn't bring myself to.
So I would recommend people watch it, but obviously, with caution. So I've noticed the movie had a green tone to it. I think the reason for that might have been because it looks dismal. I also said it looks kind of desaturated sometimes, but I think it's just a green tone. Maybe it has to do with like the drugs themselves, how they're like these dark, dirty colors. I wasn't sure.
My reading of that is just these characters are all sick.
The red dress comes up in the movie twice because that's what his mom wants to wear. And he gets these dreams of his girlfriend Marion on this on this pier, and she's wearing a red dress. Red and green is contrast, everybody.
The use of split screen in this movie is something that I noticed very early on, and I think it's just a really great visual tool to connect 2 scenes together, or also in like the scene where Marion and Harry are like lying down together, kind of like feeling each other's like faces. It just really brings us into both of their characters instead of just one or the other.
Yeah, it's cool because it gives action and reaction at the same time. And they use it also when Harry's trying to steal the TV for the first time and you see his mother like behind the keyhole. It's just a really cool scene. You get her perspective of everything and he's like manic. It's pretty interesting. We can't not talk about the extreme close-ups / montages of them in the movie, which are mainly used for like injecting drugs and when they smoke, but it's also for the TV.
Rather than actually showing us like putting the needle in their arm, except for one time at the end when they're going down to Georgia or on their way to Florida, I think, to Miami Beach. Yeah. We just see like a bunch of quick cut-ins of like, heating up the heroin in the spoon, the blood moving through the vein, the eye like dilating.
It's great.
Really brings us into like the sensation of like waking up into like a drug state.
Because with Sarah, the mom, on the TV too, they get these extreme close-ups of the clicker and her turning it off and all that shit. I think it's supposed to, by the end of the movie, because you've seen it so many times, it points out the kind of monotony and all these things. Like the process of injecting or of watching TV, it becomes monotonous and boring.
You have to do it again and again to get a better high.
I think that might have to play into it too, where it's kind of like fatiguing at some point.
At a few points, they like will show that and then like speed up the footage of them like having a party.
Yeah.
And it brings us into that feeling better than just showing us it directly.
And obviously the lens choice. They're using that to distort in a way.
Most of the shots in this movie are close-ups or mediums, and then if they're long, they're extreme long shots, how they view the world and how the world is affecting them. I noticed that mostly with Sarah, the mom.
I think it's only used in her stuff.
Yeah, as her addiction with the diet pills get worse and worse, the lens becomes more wide angle and more distorted. I think the most extreme it gets is when she goes back to the doctor's office. It's basically a fisheye lens. And also the, Dan would talk more about this, but the audio gets warped in that segment except for like her voice. It's so well done.
I think it's when she gets that big TV as a gift from Harry, and like the first couple times she's watching it, the TV is really big, and I saw that almost as like, because the show is on and the fridge is trying to like eat her or something like that. And I felt like that shot made everything feel like it was kind of gonna eat her or like close in on her. The use of score, there's like this one theme that they have through the movie, and this isn't a movie where like big crazy things happen, but they'll be playing this this like motif when they're just conversation scenes, or someone's even taking a drug or going on a walk, and it's like this very exciting score for non-exciting things. And I think the point was, it's trying to draw attention to the fact that this is very grand in like its ideas, maybe not the individual actions. It's like one person doing a drug, another person doing a drug aren't these big things, but the point it's making is big. So I think that's why the score works.
I think that basically they use the score to add significance to these personal moments, where some people, think that the personalness of, taking drugs and shooting up and being depressed, and having to like sell your body for money are small, but to yourself, they're huge.
Especially near the ending, there's a lot of flickering lights, and I think it's sort of like mimicking the instability of the characters, especially when Harry's on the phone with Mary and he's like, "Can I come home today?" He's got this like crazy flickering light, while she has like this really pretty stable soft lighting as she's like dolling herself up to go out. I think just the lighting there kind of encapsulates how they feel. We can't not mention the horror elements that are in Sarah's story. She's taking the diet pills, and we get the idea that before she starts mixing them, she's maybe taking more than she should because it's not affecting her anymore. She has a tolerance at this point. Then the crazy shit starts happening. Her fridge starts moving, and then it gets to the crazy point when we're at the fisheye shit, where the TV characters come into her room, and the fridge is trying to eat her.
A version of herself mocks her.
Right. It's like her idolized version of herself on the show. There's some really creepy kind of sound manipulation and lens choice, and there's some like really grainy ISO crazy footage. I think that stuff worked really well.
So Ty is a character I really wish that the movie delved more into.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of why he is drawn to drugs in this movie is the community that he's a part of. He, is lower income black in urban America. And, again, disclaimer, white guy. He's a part of like this gang or this organization that's like giving him high responsibilities to push the drugs.
Yeah. This is how they're trying to get their business to run.
But we also get several flashbacks to him as a kid with his mom.
There's only one.
Is it just one?
It's the one flashback of him running up to his mom, but they bring it back in the end.
He's arrested basically for being black
in
the South. He's like curled up in the fetal position on a bed, and that's when we cut back to him with his mom and her like trying to like reassure him, and that cut deep for me.
That was probably the best of like the max cuts at the end, because at the end of the movie they're all like in a bed somewhere.
Yeah.
I think that one just worked the best. In terms of like the title, because this is something I've been wanting to bring up, because like I feel like this is something that we just skip all the time. So Requiem for a Dream, what I kind of boil it down to is sort of like looking back or mourning maybe the failure of a dream or the death of a dream, or it's something to that effect, which they've all lost it because they're, addicts.
I feel like it's this want to get back to relive a dream that you once had or to attain it again.
Yeah.
We'll have some parts where a character like we'll picture them doing something, then we cut back to reality, like where Marion stabs the guy she's sleeping with, who chews so fucking loud and annoyingly.
Oh God.
She stabs him in the hand with a fork, and then we cut back and she doesn't do that, but that's like what she wants to do.
We get that with the cop earlier when they play, when Harry and Ty play, what the fuck? Monkey in the Middle. God damn. They play Monkey in the Middle with the cop's gun.
That's right, with the cop's gun. That's the first time that happens.
Yep.
Sarah wants to be on a show and have like a better relationship with her son, who she feels like she's distant from him.
Yep.
Her whole character is this exploration of what does a housewife do when they basically no longer have like a family.
Yeah.
Because her son does not live with her anymore. Her husband has died. She basically just lives in this apartment building with other women her own age, and basically watches TV all day.
Yeah.
And she sees like this TV show and her chance to be on it as like, it's almost like a way to reach something she feels like she never got with her family. So she kind of forces herself to take diet pills and go on this diet to fit in her dress, to fit this image of how she feels like she should look, even though that's just not who she is anymore. I found her story particularly to be the most compelling and also the most disturbing. But the movie's stronger based on how it juxtaposes her story with Ty and Harry and Marion.
The TV show gives her a reason to do things. It gives her a reason to wake up in the morning. And I sort of saw that as like a carrot on a stick sort of thing, where, you know, the idea that you even get a call on TV, I mean, you might have like questioned if it was really real or not, chasing something that you probably know you won't even get, but it gives you a reason, and it's this really sad thing for her character.
And they take drugs to get closer to this feeling they once had. And that's kind of where I see the title is Requiem for a Dream.
You know, there's a ton of movies about drug addiction, but I think this one, it's commentary on, you know, what even is a drug. Is food a drug? Are diets and, you know, pharmaceuticals a drug? Is television a drug? You know, what things in your own lifestyle are drugs that you're not thinking are drugs because it's not stigmatized in that way? I think that's probably the most interesting and eye-opening thing the movie does. And then the other interesting part of it is just how it visually portrays using and reusing.
A lot of people are distant from drug addiction. I think nowadays we're more aware of it in our lives, especially with, like, you know, I'm from New Hampshire and opioids are huge. Like, middle class suburban Americans might not have anyone directly in their life that is taking like hard drugs and addicted to that and living in poverty. But what about, like, you know, a dad who drinks all the time?
Hey everyone, I'm Dan and welcome back to the sounds of Requiem for a Dream. Huge library of music, sound effects, and audio cues, especially during scenes with drugs. The intro song is called Ojo for Ojo by Rayando Timbales. Love the strings in this song. It's always the really creepy music that leads me to my thought aiming towards like a fucked up main character, or in this case, main characters. Strings on their own can sound creepy. You play them in a distorted sense or just play a bunch of random notes, especially with something like a violin, they're just gonna screech, and I love it. When Sarah in her house gets the call saying that, oh, I've won a place on TV, I could barely hear that. Just a small technical note, at least add 4 decibels of sound to that. Whether or not that was intentional, I'm not sure. Harry's dreams specifically have a softer tone to them compared to, say, real life that shows like a comparison of how harsh life can be down the wrong path. The scenes where they're all, shit. It's actually funny because these scenes are the only ones where like the hardcore beat makes sense. And the whole point of being on drugs is that your sense of reality is, well, warped. When they're shooting up or about to make a bad decision or something harsh is gonna start affecting their reality from like their imaginations, whether they're on drugs or not, some of these strings and these pieces start playing out of tune. It makes it easier to predict what may or may not actually happen in, say, the next few frames or the next time we at least see the character. So each sequence had like a theme looping. The loop continues on forever, but never gets to anywhere new, which is exactly how these people's lives will continue if they stay on drugs. Here's a cool thing I also picked up on: clock ticking. Sarah is in the house and she's in the chair just like looking around nervously at everything, always looking for something to do, but always never really knowing what to do. And especially with food and her diet. When she's sitting there, it's like, oh, her plate's empty. It's like, oh, but I'm still hungry. And then it just shows a sense of reality of how long they think it's going to be. It actually paints a picture of how someone's mind works without access to a substance. Now we get to the TV part, and when the entire living room sort of breaks apart and everyone from the television comes into her home, but the use of the song Bailey and Locke's Conga, the idea of everyone laughing at Sarah specifically, who's in, like, you know, front and center of this whole thing, I associate it with both fear and like a circus. Unlike every type of music used in this film, yet it still provides the horror element of this dream that Sarah is trapped within. As this movie gets to the end, the horror element really grows with distortion, buzzing, and chanting in reverse, loud flashes and horns, and the use of the song Lux Eterna by Clint Mansell and Kronos Quartet. And it ties up a sad and, well, fucked up story quite well, truly acting as the full horror element that just wraps up everything. You do all of this, this is what happens. Personally, and I know Ryan disagrees with me, this has been the scariest movie on the podcast we've done so far. And you know what? That's a hill I'll die on.
So my lesson for this movie is kind of the opposite of what everyone says about like Alfred Hitchcock's idea of the lens is, you know, like the eye of the audience, that sort of thing. The camera is the eye. I think this movie taught me to use the camera to show what the eye can't see. And that's really the close-ups that this movie does. This is like extreme close-up the movie. It's probably like the kind of anchor of its style is these extreme close-ups used both in the quick cuts as well as the split screens a couple times. I think it brings a level, it shows detail that we can't see, and it draws importance to it, and most importantly, intimacy, I think. Kind of skipping all the filler, seeing like what, you know, the sort of mechanical aspects of the things we do, step by step, instead of the whole, okay, take it out, you know, wrap myself up. It kind of makes it more numbing. And even in the scene where Marion and Harry are in bed and there's a split screen, and you see like all the close-ups of their skin, it's just in a really intimate way to show things that we can't see.
The first time we see like the physical effect of the drugs on Harry, when we see his arm, which is just, ugh.
Oh my God, yeah, not even
haunting, disgusting, is when Ty notices it's a problem. That's the first time we really see the effect of the drugs, or with Sarah as well, when she is going crazy and is taken to the hospital. We see the physical effects of the drugs and the physical process of it, rather than just the sensation of the drugs through these montages. Which brings me into my lesson. This is a story that has really been optimized for film. Again, this is based off a book, but really it's in the editing, which is the ultimate power of cinema and film. And those quick montages of them taking the drugs, split screen, and also on like the macro level, this idea like it's called hyperlink cinema, of telling a story through like interconnected characters, very similar to Magnolia. They use the editing to reinforce these ideas. They cut, rather than just telling one scene, then another scene, they cut between these scenes. Yeah. They play basically at the same time in our head.
You said about like the arm and the injection. If you like look at the movie in like the typical like literary novel model of like, oh, up here and then climax and we, you know, falling action, I think the movie gets more and more subjective, and then at the end, at the last moment, it gets totally objective, because then we're seeing the arm, we're seeing Sarah in the hospital, and I think that's why the ending is more horrifying, because it's not subjective.
It's taking yourself out of your own head and seeing how society sees you. An important part of this movie is that these characters don't just take drugs because they want to, they take drugs because they feel like they have to, or society put them in a bad place where they turned to drugs.
What's up, guys? It's me, Joey, professional heroin addict here. Welcome to fun. We'll just say drug the movie.
At least tell us your title.
No. Me TV CW bullshit. Black Friday apartment, 20% off. Ryan Lake's portrayal of boyfriend and girlfriend reminds him of his sweet, sweet little angel cream pie.
What the fuck? Joey!
So Ryan in hard-boiled eggs. Ryan's fucking making sex with hard-boiled eggs. Grilled juicy metal.
Is that the drug?
I don't know. Fucking beats my ass. Darad. Darad. Whole fucking thing. She cries wrong. She needs to cry more correctly next time. Guys, stop the movie. I can't handle the chew.
You had to take your lid off for that?
Yeah, because it's Corwin. Party at Grandma's, the fridge is life of the party.
That's true.
Lick the blue arm.
Oh no!
Finally, baby's first meal. Alright, you guys are fucking losers. I'm gonna go smoke some weed, take some speed, and I don't know, some heroin sounds pretty nice right now.
God.
So it's that time of episode again. We get to pick the movie for next time. Okay, this is 1 and that's 4. What do I go with?
You know what? You're gonna pick 1.
I'm interested to see what happens. Any predictions? I know what Joey's prediction is.
I know what your prediction is, and I'll say it's right.
Okay, so next time we're gonna watch Speed, the best and probably the only good action thriller movie I've ever seen in my life. I know, we can watch Crank and other things later. This is a great movie, the best Keanu Reeves movie in my opinion. I think it teaches a lot about script writing actually.
And this is going to be change pace for us because we've never really done a straight action movie.
Yep. And I had an interview with the guy that did the VFX in this movie. I should put footage of that in here. Okay, until next time, please don't do drugs and don't eat too much and don't diet pill too much. Just find moderation, I guess. All right, see you next time.
Bye-bye.